Aur felt a shiver of understanding, and something else. A spark she could not name, a bond forming in the quiet tension between them. Fear and longing, caution and trust, mingled in the air like the wind swirling around the palace towers. That night, she returned to the children's rooms, tucking them in carefully. She paused at the door, glancing back toward the balcony where Eric had stood. The snow continued to fall, quieting the world outside. But inside, a storm of emotion raged. Leora whispered to herself, almost inaudibly, "I am not fit for any man, but perhaps I can be brave enough to love where it is needed most." And from the shadows of the balcony, Eric watched silently, a quiet thought forming in his mind. This woman, but she is more than I expected. And perhaps more than I deserve. The snow fell heavily that night, blanketing the kingdom in white. But in the palace, hearts and courage were stirring. Darkness had not yet fallen fully, but a spark had ignited, a spark that might bring salvation, or challenge, or something far deeper than either of them had imagined. The forest beyond the palace was no longer the place Leora remembered from her village. The trees seemed taller here, their branches tangled like the fingers of ancient giants. Shadows stretched long across the snowy ground, twisting and shifting as if alive. The wind carried whispers that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Yet Leora moved forward, her cloak wrapped tightly around her, determined to understand the curse that haunted the children. Kale and Alara had told her of strange dreams, visions of icy figures and dark shapes lurking near the palace walls. She could no longer ignore it. Brace, she reminded herself, was not the absence of fear. It was moving forward, despite it.
"Do you think this is wise?" Kale's small voice trembled beside her.
"We have no choice," Leora said firmly, holding his hand. "We must face it now, before it grows stronger." Alara clung to her other side, shivering. "I don't want the dark to find us," she whispered. But Leora knelt, looking into the children's eyes.
"I will not let it."
"You trust me, don't you?" The children nodded, their trust a fragile, precious thing. But deeper they ventured into the forest, the colder it became. A gray mist curled around their legs, and the snow beneath their boots seemed to whisper. Leora tightened her grip on her cloak and glanced at the children. Their eyes were wide, but they followed her without complaint. Thus, she felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. Then the shadows moved. At first it was just a flicker, like a deer slipping behind a tree. Then it grew, a tall figure, darker than night, emerging from the mist. Leora's heart pounded. She stepped in front of the children, her voice steady but firm. "Who is there?" The figure did not speak. It simply stood, still as stone yet radiating a cold that made the breath freeze in her lungs. Its presence was heavy, almost suffocating. From behind, a voice broke through the tension. "Step back, Leora."
Eric emerged from the trees, his cloak flowing behind him. His gray eyes were sharp, focused, and filled with something she had never seen before. Fierce protectiveness.
"I warned you," he said quietly. "The forest is not safe." "I cannot leave the children alone," Leora said firmly, though her voice shook slightly. Arik's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "Brace." "Then we face it together." The dark figure moved closer, its shadow stretching unnaturally. Leora felt a wave of cold wash over her, yet she refused to retreat. She held her ground, realizing that fear alone could not save anyone. Courage, she knew, would. "Why do you come here?" Eric demanded, his voice resonating like thunder. The shadow shifted, revealing a hollowed face, empty eyes, and a presence that seemed to suck warmth from the air. It was a manifestation of the curse, born from generations of pain and fear. Bashan. You cannot harm the children, Leora said, her voice trembling yet filled with determination. They are innocent. You have no power over them. The figure's form shimmered, as if testing her words, measuring her resolve. And then, for the first time, it spoke, not with sound, but in the mind, a whispering cold voice that echoed in her thoughts. Only the unworthy can touch the children. Only the weak shall fall. Weak? She thought. She had spent her life believing that she was unworthy, unfit for love, unfit for life beyond her small village. And yet here, in this frozen, haunted forest, she realized that courage was more than strength. It was the willingness to stand when everything told her she could not. She stepped forward, hand held high, her voice steady. I am not weak, and I will not let fear decide who survives. Arik moved to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. The contact was grounding, reassuring. You do not face this alone, he said quietly. Together they advanced, the shadow figure retreating slightly, as if sensing the bond forming between them. Bration. The children watched, shivering, yet holding their ground behind Leora.
The forest seemed to respond to their courage.
Bray shimmered in the air, light breaking through the gray mist like silver threads. Leora felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of fear, hope, and something else she could not name. Right. You see, she whispered, almost to herself. Love and courage. They can stand against darkness. For the first time, there was no distance between them, no command, no caution, only recognition. You are more than you realize, he said. And the words were soft, yet they struck her like sunlight through ice. The shadow figure attacked suddenly, a burst of cold that swept through the clearing. Leora instinctively stepped in front of the children, shielding them with her body. Arik reacted immediately, his hands glowing faintly with a strange, warm light, something she had never seen. A power that radiated from him naturally. Together, they pushed the darkness back. Leora raised her voice, calling out words she did not understand but felt in her heart. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from her courage. Arik moved beside her, and together their presence formed a barrier the curse could not penetrate. For a moment the forest was still. The snow drifted quietly. The wind softened, and the shadows seemed to pull back into the mist. The children stepped forward cautiously, their small hands gripping Leora's. Did we win? Kale asked. For now, Leora said, a small smile on her lips. She realized that victory was not only about defeating the curse, but about embracing courage, love, and trust. As they began their return to the palace, the forest seemed less threatening, though still alive with whispers. Leora walked between the children, Arik beside her, and for the first time she felt a sense of partnership she had never known. She was not alone. And perhaps neither was he. That night, as the children slept, Leora and Arik found themselves standing near the balcony, the moonlight casting silver patterns across the stone. The forest below was quiet, yet Leora knew it was only a temporary peace.
You risked yourself today, Arik said quietly, his voice barely more than a breath.
I could not let the children face it alone, Leora replied. Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of her heart. And I could not stand aside while they were in danger. Arik's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability in his storm-gray eyes.
You are brave, he said.
More than I expected, more than anyone could expect. But also fear. She had spent her life believing she was unworthy, invisible, too much for anyone to love. Yet here in the presence of a king, in the heart of a curse-filled kingdom, she realized that bravery and love could exist even in someone like her. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder, could she belong here? Would she be seen as more than what she had always been told she was? Eric's hand brushed hers, a simple, careful gesture that sent a shiver through her. Neither of them spoke for a long moment, and yet everything hung between them. Their fear, their longing, their trust. "The curse will not wait," Eric said finally, his voice steady again, though softer than usual. We must prepare. It is growing stronger. And soon, it may challenge more than the children's safety."
Leora nodded, understanding the truth of his words.
Courage was not a single moment. It was continuous, persistent, and sometimes terrifying. She would face it, no matter the cost. And yet, he added, his eyes finding hers once more, we will face it together. She nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Together! The next morning, the palace was quiet. Leora prepared the children for their lessons, but her mind lingered on the forest, on the shadow figure, on the strange power Eric had displayed. There was more to the curse than even she had realized. And yet, she felt a strange, unshakable strength. The trials had begun, but she had faced them without fleeing. She had stood, protected, and fought with courage. That evening, as the sun dipped below the snow-capped mountains, she found Eric in the library, studying ancient texts.
He looked up as she entered, and for a moment the distance between them seemed to vanish.
"You are growing stronger," he said softly, "in ways beyond magic or skill. Courage, Bert, wisdom."
"You possess them all!"
Leora lowered her gaze, feeling both pride and fear. I only try to do what is right." Eric stepped closer, his presence commanding yet gentle. "And that is more than enough." The snow continued to fall outside, silent and relentless. Within the palace walls, hearts and courage were tested, forged in the shadows of the forest. Leora realized that the trials were far from over, yet she no longer felt the same fear that had gripped her in the village. She had found something stronger, trust, courage, and a bond that might carry her through the darkness. And as the night deepened, the curse stirred, sensing resistance, and a storm of shadow and challenge approached. But Leora, standing beside the Alpha King, would face it. She would not run. She would not hide. She would fight with love, courage, and the heart she had long denied the world. The first light of dawn stretched across the kingdom of Valdrin, spilling pale gold over the snow-blanketed fields. In the palace, silence reigned. The wind whispered against the high towers, carrying with it the faint, lingering chill of the forest. But within the walls, hearts beat fast, hearts that had been tested by fear, darkness, and courage. Leora stood near the balcony, wrapped in her cloak, watching the sun rise. The events of the past days weighed heavily on her. The shadow figure, the whispers of the curse, the dangerous forest trial. Everything had tested her in ways she had never imagined. Breaths. Yet something in her had shifted. She no longer felt the same weight of shame and self-doubt that had followed her since childhood. She had seen herself brave, capable, and protective. She had discovered that love could be expressed in courage, in loyalty, and in the simple act of standing for those who could not defend themselves. Footsteps echoed softly behind her. Auric emerged, his cloak trailing behind him. Gray eyes catching the first light of dawn. Patient. He paused, watching her silently for a moment. "You have changed," he said quietly, voice low but steady. I, grasping, I have faced what I could not before, and I realized he.
I am not as unworthy as I believed. Her voice trembled slightly, but her words carried conviction.
I have found strength I never knew I had. Eric stepped closer, the distance between them narrowing yet still filled with tension, anticipation, and unspoken emotion. You have always had it, he said, breath. You only needed to see it in yourself. They stood in silence for a moment, the palace breathing around them. Outside, the snow glittered like glass in the morning light, the kingdom calm yet aware that darkness had not disappeared entirely. The curse still lingered, though weakened by courage and heart. But here, in the quiet of the dawn, there was hope. The children's laughter echoed down the hall, drawing them both inside. Kale and Alara ran toward Leora, their small faces bright with happiness. "Did it!" Kale exclaimed. "You saved us, Leora!" Alara threw her arms around Leora's waist. "Brave. We were scared, but you were brave. You protected us." Leora smiled, feeling warmth bloom inside her chest. "I will always protect you," she said, hugging them gently. Her eyes met Eric's, who watched with an expression both tender and proud.
"You have proven more than courage," Arik said softly. "You have proven that love and devotion matter as much as strength." Leora looked at him, startled by the depth of his words. I only wanted to do what was right. And that is why you succeeded, he said. Because your heart guided you, not pride or fear. For the first time, Leora felt seen, not as the girl the villagers had called unfit, but as someone worthy, capable. Oh! She realized that love was not about appearances or perfection or fitting someone else's idea of worth. Love, true love, was found in courage, devotion, and the willingness to protect what mattered most. That afternoon, the three of them walked through the palace gardens. Snow still covered the ground, but the sun had begun to warm the air, melting icicles into tiny streams. Leora held the children's hands, while Eric followed closely, his gaze occasionally on her. "You have changed the palace," Eric said quietly.
Desk, not with gold or skill, but with heart. The children are happier, and I feel lighter because of you. Leora blinked. "I never expected to mean this much to anyone." He smiled faintly, an expression softening his usually stern face. "You mean more than you know. To me, to the children, to this kingdom." She looked down at him, hesitant, yet emboldened by the courage she had nurtured in the forest. I have always believed I was unfit for anyone, but now I see. Maybe I was only unfit for fear." Maybe I am ready to love where it is needed most. Arik's gray eyes softened, a warmth in them that made her chest ache. "You have loved courageously," he said. "And that makes you more than fit. It makes you essential." The next challenge came as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows across the snow. The remnants of the curse had not disappeared. The dark presence lingered in the edges of the forest, stirring uneasily. Leora and Arik knew that to fully protect the children they would have to confront it one last time, together, with courage and heart as their shields. They returned to the forest at twilight,
the children safe within the palace walls. Leora felt the cold bite at her cheeks, but she held her head high, remembering every trial she had faced so far. Eric walked beside her, silent yet steadfast, his presence reassuring. "Are you ready?" he asked softly.
I am, Leora said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. Whatever comes, we face it together. They entered the clearing where the shadow figure had appeared before.
The darkness quivered at their approach, reacting to the courage and love that radiated from them both. "You have grown stronger," the shadow whispered, voice like ice against their minds.
"But only one heart may face me. Only one may endure." Aric's eyes met Leora's. "We are stronger together," he said, his voice firm.
Leora nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Then, together we stand."
The final trial began as the shadows swirled around them, forming shapes of cold, twisted figures.
Leora felt fear, but it no longer paralyzed her. She raised her hands, her heart steady, and called upon the courage she had nurtured in the forest.
Aric joined her, his presence radiating warmth and strength, a shield against the darkness. The shadow hissed, moving closer, but they did not falter.
Round. In desperate, Leora's voice rang out, strong and certain.
"You have no power over what love protects." The shadows recoiled. Aric stepped forward, holding her hand, and together they radiated a force the curse could not withstand.
Light, warm and silver blossomed around them, melting the darkness. Leora realized that courage alone had not been enough. Love, trust, and partnership had given them strength beyond fear. With a final shiver, the shadow dissipated, leaving the forest calm and still. The curse had been broken, not by magic alone, but by hearts brave enough to face darkness, and love despite fear. Returning to the palace, Leora felt a sense of peace she had never known.
The children ran to greet her, their laughter echoing through the halls.
Kale and Alara clung to her, eyes wide with wonder.
"You really did it!" Kale exclaimed. "You are amazing!" Alara added, hugging her tightly.
Leora smiled, tears of relief and joy welling in her eyes. "We did it," she said softly, glancing at Eric, who watched quietly from the doorway. His eyes held admiration, pride, and something far deeper. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Words were unnecessary. The bond they shared, forged through trials and courage, was stronger than any spoken promise.
Break. Finally, Aric stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He extended his hand, a simple gesture filled with meaning. "Leora, will you stay? Not just for the children, but for this kingdom, for us?"
Gee. She thought of the girl who had once believed herself unworthy, the girl who had faced fear and shadow and emerged stronger. She reached for his hand, her touch steady and sure.
"Yes," she said. "I will stay."
I choose this." Eric's lips curved in a rare, gentle smile.
Then together we will face whatever comes next. The palace seemed brighter that evening, the snow glinting like silver diamonds. Leora walked through the halls with the children, their laughter and chatter filling the spaces that had once been quiet and tense.
Eric followed, his presence calm yet commanding, his gaze often lingering on Leora with warmth and admiration. For the first time in her life, Leora felt she belonged, not in her village, not in the shadows of judgment, but here, in the heart of a kingdom that needed courage, love, and unwavering devotion. She had discovered that worth was not measured by appearance or others' approval, but by courage, heart, and the willingness to love and protect what mattered most.
Later, standing with Eric on the balcony, Leora gazed at the horizon.
The sun dipped low, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. She felt the wind on her face, the warmth of Eric's hand in hers, and the unshakable truth of belonging.
You have changed my world, Eric said softly, his voice carrying over the cold wind. And you have changed mine, Leora replied, her eyes meeting his. I never believed I could belong here or be loved like this. Eric's smile was steady, certain, and filled with quiet power. You were never unfit, Leora. Only the world failed to see you. I see you, and I choose you.
Brask.
For the first time, she believed it. Not just the words, but the truth behind them.
Breath. She had faced darkness, fear, and doubt, and emerged stronger, braver, and ready to embrace love and life in its fullest. The snow fell softly around them, blanketing the kingdom in peace. Inside the palace, laughter, warmth, and light returned. Outside, the forest still whispered, but no longer with threat, only with the echoes of courage, heart, and the triumph of love. Best. And so, at last, Leora, Arik, and the children faced the future together, stronger, braver, and bound by the deepest truths of the heart, trust, courage, and the transformative power of love.